Do you ever feel that you are living two lives? There is the life you imagine, the one of focus, strength, and purpose, where you move with the clarity of a master swordsman. And then there is the reality, a series of distractions, shallow engagements, and forgotten intentions, where you feel like a student who has wandered into the wrong school, holding a wooden sword in a room of blunt edges. This division, this quiet war between who you are and who you could be, is not a failure of character. It is a failure of environment. For centuries, we have misunderstood the true nature of the place where mastery is born. In the year 1645, an old warrior sat in a cave. His name was Miyamoto Musashi, and by any measure, he was the greatest swordsman Japan had ever known. Undefeated in over 60 duels, a strategist, an artist. In the final weeks of his life, in that cold stone solitude, he did not write a manual on how to swing a sword. He wrote a treatise on how to see the world. He called it the Dōjō, the path of aloneness. Its first precept is this: accept everything just the way it is. At first, this sounds like passive surrender, but Musashi was not a passive man. He was revealing a deeper truth. The master does not waste energy wishing the world were different. The master steps into the world as it is and transforms it, through perception, into his training ground. He makes every rock, every interaction, every moment of silence part of his practice. That cave was not a retreat from his life. It was the final, purest expression of his dojo, the Dōjō. We translate it simply as training hall, a place of sweat and repetition, but the characters reveal the deeper meaning: do, the way, the path, the philosophy; jo, the place. It is not merely a location for practice. It is the place of the way. And what if that place was not confined by four walls? What if the true dojo was not a where, but a how? A state of mind so intentional that it collapses the distance between practice and performance, between learning and living. This is the single rule: your life is a dojo. Every environment you enter must become your place of the way. Your kitchen, your desk, your silent morning, a difficult conversation. These are not interruptions to your philosophy. They are its only valid training grounds. Chapter 1. The student in the wrong room. Consider a man named Kenji. In the eyes of the world, Kenji was successful. He managed a team at a bustling firm in Tokyo, his days a mosaic of meetings, reports, and digital notifications. Yet, he carried a persistent emptiness, a feeling of being perpetually untethered. He had, in his youth, practiced kendo. He remembered the profound silence of the dojo, the resonant strike of the shinai, the intense clarity that followed a bout. He would leave that hall and feel the clarity dissipate within blocks, replaced by the noise of the city and the demands of a life that felt distinctly unmasterful. He lived for the escape to the dojo, and in doing so, he had compartmentalized his entire being. His philosophy had a scheduled time and place, and the rest was chaos. He was a student who believed the lesson only existed in one specific room. This is the great modern error. We seek mastery in capsules, an hour of meditation, a weekend workshop, a motivational book. We believe that by visiting the dojo, we will absorb its power. But the dojo does not work on you. You must work on the world as the dojo. The ancient masters knew this. The samurai's training was not confined to the practice yard. It extended to the tea ceremony, where the focus was on the precise, mindful placement of a bowl. It extended to calligraphy, where a single brush stroke demanded the same total presence as parrying a blow. It extended to the garden, where the careful arrangement of stone and moss reflected the strategic mind. There was no division. The way was total. Kenji felt the division acutely because he had, without knowing it, abandoned the principle of ichigo ichii, one time, one meeting. He treated his daily life as a series of repeats, of mundane rehearsals, while waiting for the real performance. He failed to see that the meeting, the report, the commute, was the one irreplaceable meeting with his own potential. Chapter 2. Carving the intentional space. The transformation does not begin with adding more. It begins with a ruthless act of subtraction and designation. In a traditional dojo, the space is empty, clean, purposeful. Nothing enters that does not serve the way. Your first act is to apply this principle to your environment, starting with the smallest dominion you have. For Kenji, it began not at the office, but in his own cramped apartment. One Sunday, he performed an act of katazuke, a putting in order, beyond mere cleaning. He removed everything from his main room. Each object was held and questioned. Did this serve his clarity, or did it contribute to the noise? Unread books, sentimental clutter, distracting electronics. All were boxed or discarded. He did not create a sterile space, but an intentional one. A single scroll with a Zen proverb was hung. His kendo gear, previously buried in a closet, was placed respectfully in a corner, not as stored equipment, but as a tokonoma, an alcove displaying what is sacred. This physical act is a neurological command. It tells the mind, this space is different. Here we are deliberate. The samurai spoke of Heijoshin, the ordinary mind, a mind that remains calm and constant, the same in a palace or in a battle. This mind is not found. It is built through the consistent framing of one's environment. When Kenji sat in that cleared space each morning, not with his phone, but with 5 minutes of silence, he was not meditating. He was conducting the opening ritual of his personal dojo. He was setting the kamiza, the spiritual head of the room, within himself. The rule was simple. In this space, there is only presence. The ringing phone, the pull of distraction, became not temptations, but tests of his boundary. He was learning to guard the gates of his attention as a sentinel guards a castle. Chapter 3. Shuhari. The Three Hearts of Practice. With an intentional space established, practice can begin in earnest. But what is the nature of this practice if we are not swinging swords? We turn to the concept of Shuhari, the 3 stages of mastery that govern any art, from pottery to strategy to life itself. Shu means to obey, to protect. Ha means to detach, to diverge. Rai means to transcend, to leave. In the Shu stage, the student follows the form precisely, without deviation. In Kenji's life, this meant imposing strict, simple forms on his daily actions. He began with his work. A report was not just a task, it was a kata, a prescribed form. He would dedicate a single, uninterrupted 90-minute block to it, as if it were a drill. He followed the form. Clear the desk, state the intent, work without rising. His interactions became forms. Listening, truly listening, without preparing a response, became a drill in presence. He was not trying to be innovative or brilliant. He was learning to obey the form of deep work, the form of respectful engagement. This is often where we fail. We wish to be masters Rai before we have been obedient students Shu. We seek to innovate a philosophy we have not yet consistently practiced. The Ha stage is where Kenji began to feel a shift. After months of strict form, he started to understand the principles behind them. The 90-minute block was not about time. It was about the elimination of context switching, the preservation of mental energy. He began to adapt the forms. Perhaps the block became 75 minutes, or he applied the same principle to strategic thinking instead of report writing. He detached from the literal rule, having internalized its spirit. His morning silence no longer needed the physical room. He could find it in the brief pause before a meeting, in the walk between stations. The dojo's walls were becoming permeable. He was diverging, experimenting, making the forms his own because he had first surrendered to them completely. Chapter 4. The Rivals Within, Kanran and Seijaku. No path is without conflict, but in the dojo of life, your most formidable rivals are not other people. They are internal states. The samurai had names for them. Kanran, chaos, confusion, the swirling storm of distraction and emotional reactivity. And Seijaku, tranquility, the still and silent center. Your daily practice is the endless duel between these two. For Kenji, Kanran manifested most powerfully during a crisis at work. A major project was failing due to a partner's mistake. The office was thick with panic, blame, and frantic energy. A field of pure Kanran. The old Kenji would have been swept into the storm, adding his own anxiety to the noise, reacting to every new email with fresh dread. But the student of the dojo sees Kanran as the ultimate test. Musashi wrote, "In the midst of chaos, do not lose your presence of mind." Kenji remembered this. He did not try to stop the storm around him. Instead, he focused on cultivating a pocket of Seijaku within himself. He took 5 minutes. He closed his eyes and did not seek calm. He simply observed the chaos in his own body, the tight chest, the racing thoughts, without judgment. This was his practice. From that small center of stillness, his actions changed. He did not send a reactive email. He walked deliberately to his superior's office and presented a clear assessment and two potential paths forward. His voice was low, his posture steady. He was not displaying false calm. He was anchored in a practiced seijaku. His demeanor became a dojo for the meeting itself, imposing a form of order simply through his own non-reactive presence. The crisis did not magically resolve, but the way it was engaged with transformed. Kenji realized that every moment of anger, of anxiety, of distraction is an opponent stepping onto the mats of your mind. You do not banish them. You face them, bow, and engage them with the form you have practiced. That is the duel. That is the practice. Chapter 5. The Unbroken Circle, Life as Keiko. We reach the final understanding. In the true dojo, there is no end to the training. Practice is not a means to an end. Practice is the purpose. This is known as Keiko, the relentless, dedicated, and joyful practice of the art forever. The master does not practice until they get it right. They practice until they cannot get it wrong, and then they practice more, because the practice itself is the expression of mastery. Kenji's life began to resemble this unbroken circle. His work was Keiko in strategy and leadership. His evenings became Keiko in the art of rest and recovery, understanding that to sharpen the mind, one must also care for the body and spirit. A difficult conversation with a friend became Keiko in compassion and honest communication. Even moments of boredom, of waiting in line, became Keiko in patience and observation. He had stopped seeking a destination called mastery. He was walking the path, the do, and the walking itself was the goal. The dojo was no longer a place he went to. It was the lens through which he saw everything. He lived in a state of perpetual, gentle apprenticeship to his own life. The old warrior in the cave understood this. Musashi's final precept in the Dōjō is, never stray from the way. He does not say, reach the end of the way. The way is infinite. Your life, with all its mundane tasks, its profound joys, and its inevitable sufferings, is the only hall you will ever need. It is the dojo. The mats are laid in every moment you breathe. The choice is singular and perpetual. Will you enter this space as a visitor, distracted and seeking escape, or will you bow at its edge, honor its potential, and step onto its sacred ground, ready to practice the singular art of being? The form is yours to choose. The practice is yours to begin. The way is here now, in the place where you stand. That, then, is the way, to see your life not as separate from your practice, but as its truest expression. You have learned that mastery is not a summit to be conquered, but a path to be walked in every environment you inhabit. You have learned the principle of Shuhari, the obedience to form, the understanding of its spirit, and the ultimate transcendence where the practice becomes your very being. You have seen how the quiet duel with the chaos within is the most important training of all. So, I leave you with this single question, a koan for your modern dojo. In your life today, what is one small, mundane action you can transform into your first deliberate kata? Where will you lay the first mat of your own unbroken practice? If this path has resonated with you, if you feel the call to see your world as a place of the way, then share your answer in the comments below. Your insight becomes part of the collective training ground. And if you wish to walk further along this way, to deepen your practice with these timeless principles, consider joining this community. Your subscription is a silent bow at the edge of the dojo, a commitment to continue the practice together. Thank you. Not just for watching, but for listening this deeply, and for the sincere practice you now bring to your own life. Until next, we meet on the path. Walk well.